What is going on? So I got a pretty good question on email the other day about the channel, and somebody was saying that, I know you talk about Christian prepping and things like that, and is that really faith-based? And the particular thing that I wanted to address is the person said, that sounds like you're trying to teach us to go back to primitive times, and they kind of talked a lot about, isn't it kind of a primitive thing? Like, we don't need that anymore. We have God and we have faith and we have the system and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So here's the thing. If you don't want to prepare for anything or have any kind of insurance policy for anything, that's up to you. You can do whatever you want, right? But you have car insurance, you wear a seatbelt, you have life insurance, you have house insurance, you have renter's insurance. You know what I'm saying? So prepping is different for everybody based on their needs and what they want to do. But, so we had a blackout today here in Texas. We had the first blackout of the summer. There's been a lot of talks about rolling blackouts throughout the summer. And what I can tell you is at 102 degrees in the late afternoon, my house was able to stay in the mid 70s. We had power, we had computers, internet, Wi-Fi all up and running. We had plenty of water and food, and we were fine. I mean, we had to move and condense down to a certain specific room in the house, but we were totally fine. We were prepared. Now, people can call that, fear mongering or whatever you want, or you can just call it having logic. And it really depends on people's background and what they think about it. But let me ask you this. Are shortages of food, is that really a current, 21st century thing that should be happening right now? Or is that actually more primitive? Shortages of food. Was it more prevalent in primitive times than today? So if we're going there today, wouldn't it make sense to live your life in terms of the strategy of your life? You can call it prepping, but it's really just strategizing. And what I mean by that is, if you think of chess, it's not one move ahead, it's not two moves ahead, it's being able to see 10 moves ahead and how it's really like 2 or 3 moves ahead and then how each one of those forks out from there. So really you're able to visually scan, 12 or 15 move possibilities ahead. And so people might say, well, that's fear. That's living in fear. People who are more intellectual would say that's using your brain that God gave you, and there's nothing that blesses God more than when you use the things that He gave you. That's in the Bible. So yeah, I mean, am I preparing in a more primitive way? Yeah. Are we in a more primitive time? Yeah. I mean, you think about just shortages, okay? What about crime? So crime in America, according to the FBI data, is higher than it's ever been in recorded history. Is that more 21st century civilian lifestyle, or is that a more primitive thing? You tell me. Think about rolling blackouts and not being able to live off the grid, not being able to live on the grid. Okay, like we had to go 3 hours today, completely off the grid. Okay, is that a more primitive way of life or a current 2022 way of life? It's more primitive. So the fact that I am preparing in a more primitive way for a more primitive possible situation that has a significant higher likelihood of happening now than ever before in your lifetime, who's using their brain? So you can call it prepping, you can call it whatever you want, but I call it being prepared. I call it not, and somebody was friendly debating. I love it when you guys make these posts, by the way, so don't think that I'm in any way telling you not to. But somebody made this post the other day in the chat, and they said, that prepping and stuff is living in fear, and we really should focus on spreading the gospel. Okay, so number one, I would love to know how many people actually share the gospel with somebody in an entire year. I'm not talking about post it somewhere, but I'm saying face to face. You know what I'm saying? Because I promise you, I will say my hunch is I do it much more than most people. And people who know me, in my family, my church, and my business know that. Okay? So I don't know. I'm not the best at it probably, but I'm pretty good at it. But sharing my faith and living my faith out is big to me. Okay, so that's one thing. Two, the whole concept of am I living in fear or faith has nothing to do with what's external. I can be doing this video right now out of fear or out of faith. You could be watching this video out of fear or out of faith. Fear and faith, when you think about it from a psychological standpoint, is very little to do with what you see on the outside. It starts and wells up on the inside, and then it manifests itself in different ways on the outside. But just because somebody says, well, think about this. Is every person who is fearful, do they clearly show that they are fearful? No. We know that. We know that to be true. That people can be afraid of something, but be very good at hiding it. And then some people can have a lot of faith, and you would have no idea until you start talking to them. So it could well up on the outside, but it doesn't have to. So what I'm saying is just because you are prepping or using logic or thinking about things, truly, you could actually say this, thinking about things in a more progressive way than what is typical to how people live in your current day and time, aka they're more logically making decisions based on actual things that are actually happening this year and in the next 6 months and in the next year from now. They're progressing, into what is coming next. Do you know what I'm saying? Or you can call it prepping and fear. But at the end of the day, it's about what's in your heart, what you think about it, and what you think you should do. And so I don't think you could read the Bible out of fear. You can go to church out of fear. You can be a pastor out of fear because you don't want to do anything else. Because once you become a pastor, the job is pretty cake. Not saying for everybody either. Most pastors have it hard, and I'm not sure if they should have it that hard. Different subject. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.